Hello everyone. Welcome to Shortlisted. Hope you all have an amazing day. In today's video, we are going to talk about 7 weirdest military vehicles you haven't heard of. On number 7 is the bridge tank, Boyralt machine. It was a French experimental landship to drive over the trenches of Western Front during World War I and was named after its designer Boyralt. It is also considered as an ancestor of the tanks. Not unlike tanks, it had no armor and just a single overhead tank. The objective of this machine was to flatten barbed wires and ride over trenches and gaps on the battlefield. It was made of huge parallel tracks formed by metallic frames with transverse beams. It was a single track covering the entire width of the machine, rotating around a single triangular center with an 80 horsepower petrol engine, chains and rods. The project was abandoned because it was too slow and fragile. It only had a speed of 3 km per hour and only one was ever built. Number 6 is the Minimoke. The Minimoke is a small, front-wheel drive utility and recreational convertible, manufactured and marketed originally by British Motor Corporation. The Minimoke is noted for its simple, straightforward, doorless design, and its adaptability. Originally prototyped as a lightweight military vehicle using the engine, transmission, and suspension parts from the minivan, but the small wheels and low ground clearance made it unsuitable as an off-road military vehicle. But it got adopted by the British and New Zealand Royal Navies. The Moke's small size made it ideal for driving on the deck of an aircraft carrier and around crowded docks. It was later offered in a civilian form as a low-cost, easily maintained vehicle, achieving global popularity as a lightweight, recreational, and a utility vehicle. On number 5 is the Kugelpanzer. The Kugelpanzer literally translates to spherical tank and was even said to be derived from 1917 Trefferwagen. It was Germany's solutions to the problem of crossing the open killing field of no man lands. The tank was measured at 5 by 5.5 feet and had a top speed of 8 km per hour via its 2 hemispherical wheels, and a single rear wheel was used for stabilization. It carried a single machine gun and had a 5 mm armor on the thickest point, which was not enough. Germans abounded the project following the adoption of Blitzkrieg and the evolution of maneuver warfare. It was captured by the Soviets either in Manchuria after it was sent by the Germans to the Japanese, or at Kumsdorf testing ground. On number 4 is the Boeing Vertol XCH-62. It was an experimental aircraft built from an existing CH-47 Chinook heavy lift helicopter. The Chinook's lift capacity of 28,800 pounds was dwarfed by the Soviet Mi-26 and Mi-12 helicopters. In an effort to catch up to the Soviets, Boeing added a third engine to the Chinook and larger rotors. These modifications allowed the helicopter to straddle heavier cargoes like armored vehicles while still carrying up to 12 troops in its slender fuselage. One example was built in 1974, but challenges in harnessing the torque of the 3 engines led to delays. Congress cut the program's funding the following year. The XCH-62 still remains the largest helicopter ever built in a Western country. The prototype was on display at the U.S. Army Aviation Museum at Fort Rucker, Alabama until it was scrapped in 2005. On number 3 is the Praying Mantis tank. It was an attempted variant of the Universal Carrier, the British armored tracked vehicle introduced in 1940 for transporting support equipment and personnel. It was an attempt to make an armored vehicle that could fire over obstacles. Initially, it was designed to carry just one person. There was also a 2-man version in 1943. An enclosed metal box structure replaced its hull. The box structure is pivoted at the rear of the vehicle and a driver and a gunner lay down in it. The structure could be elevated too, and on top of it was a machine gun turret fitted with 2 Bren light machine guns. The initial idea was to drive the Praying Mantis up to a wall, raise the gun, and fire over the barrier from a safe position. But the project was rejected in 1944 after trials. On number 2 is the Bartini Barief VVA-14. The VVA-14 was a Soviet wing and ground effect aircraft built in the early 1970s. It was designed to take off from water and fly at high speed just above the water over long distances. Its main mission was to skim the surface of the ocean in order to detect and destroy U.S. submarines, and 2 prototypes of the VVA-14 were built. But development was marred by flotation problems, engine issues, and the death of the aircraft's designer, and the project got scrapped after 107 flights and 103 flight hours. One example survives today in a dismantled state at the Soviet Central Air Force Museum in Moscow. And on number 1 is the Surcouf. The Surcouf was a French cruiser submarine. Surcouf was built as a loophole in the Washington Naval Treaty. Following World War I, strict limits were placed on the warships of the world's major naval powers like displacement and gun caliber. However, these restrictions were applied to battleships and cruisers, not submarines. It was intended to be the lead ship in her class. Surcouf was the only cruiser submarine built by France and commissioned in 1934. It was equipped with 10 torpedo tubes, 6 anti-aircraft guns, and 2 8-inch guns, the largest placed on any cruiser submarine, and also featured a hangar which housed an observation floatplane used for gun calibration. Surcouf escaped Nazi capture but sunk in the Caribbean Sea after a collision with an unknown ship in February 1942.